Here's the boss.
Uh-oh.
There's the boss.
All the guys again.
Good afternoon,
How we
Charles.
doing?
But I went to the center today and I saw the shop, and Sabrina was there, they painted. And I asked her about our art that were hanging on the wall. She said they are saved. They didn't throw them away. They are there.
Yep.
I guess you have to put them back by yourself. Right.
Well, I think the idea is that, you know, we're probably going to try to get it back to people,
Oh.
you know, so that, you know, people have their artwork.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, the artwork doesn't belong to the center. It belongs to the people who did it. So, yeah, we've got to kind of clean up that, you know, because there wasn't any time, you know, when we shut everything down, you know, to get everything back to people. So, yeah.
The room looked clean and fresh.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure it did. Yeah. Well, what they're going to do is they're going to take that front studio and they're going to basically make it a lab, a Zoom class lab. And supposedly they're going to put a big interactive TV in there so that people can, you know, kind of have an interactive experience, you know, during their class. So, and actually some of the, you know, some of the classes coming up, if they do the things that they are talking about, it will be kind of like a traditional class, and some people will be on site, some people will be online, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but instead of kind of like a kind of a discussion or a lecture format like we have right now, it might move more into kind of a step-by-step, or people are working and then sharing their work, you know, during the class. So, you know, as this evolves, you know, it's not going to stay the same. You know, it will change, you know, and it's got to change, you know, to accommodate people. You know, not everybody just wants to sit around and, you know, talk for an hour. You know, yeah, they want to get their hands in some, you know, in some messy stuff and, you know, make a mess. And, you know, the only difference is, you know, you'll be making the mess at your own home, you know, and we'll be connected still this way. So
I used to like at the center because you used to provide the material.
Right. Well, and that's
the paint and the other thing.
Well, and that's in the works, you know, as far as discussing, you know, how we're going to manage that. You know, if people register for the class, and that's one of the things we're talking about too, even with the Zoom class, rather than it being kind of open, anybody can kind of come in at any time, you know, maybe setting it up more as, you know, people actually register for the class and you've got a set number of attendees and the class is scheduled at a certain time, and materials at that point would probably be provided for that group, you know, so that they have the things that they need, you know, to actually do the class, even though they're doing it from their own home. So there's, you know, there's so many things kind of up in the air, you know.
Yeah, everything is in the air. Yeah.
Well, you know, that's being discussed and talked about right now is to, you know, how do we continue forward? You know, how do we take what we have right now and make it work and make it better? You know, so that the experience for everybody is, you know, is a little better, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, we hadn't forgotten about you guys. Believe me, you know. Yeah, we're trying to figure things out, and it's, you know, right now it's kind of this thing of there's a whole variety of different technologies out there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's how do you get everybody set up you know, to a degree where they can really interact effectively, you know, in a class. And so, you know, if I'm teaching a class here in my studio, that doesn't mean that I'm just using the laptop. That means that I'm using a laptop, and I'm probably using a camera, like an overhead camera, over a studio setup that can feed into the laptop so you guys can see what's going on. And, you know, I mean, there's, you know, technological issues and hurdles to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, vice versa. It's like if you're sitting there working at home, you know, how do I see what you're doing in real time? You know, so that I can go, okay, yeah, I think you need, you know, to change the composition or the values or whatever that is, you know. And so far, you know, we've been kind of working through it the way we've been doing it, which is you guys do something and then you send it in, and, you know, I can make some comments, and if you want to go back and you make some modifications, try some new things, you can do it. If you don't, okay. Okay. You know, it's an option. Anyway, well, I'm glad you got by the center today and that they've done a little painting, and, you know, all that's looking better.
I go there Tuesday and Thursday to the gym. Tuesday and Thursday.
Oh, for you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in the morning. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you when you signed up for that, do you have like a consistent time? You know, now Armando is always here on Tuesday and Thursdays at 10 o'clock,
Well,
like that.
On Thursday, I made my schedule for next week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. The schedule for next week.
Yeah. So each week you sign up.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That'll work. Yeah.
And they check you in when you get in. And,
oh, yeah. Yeah, they're going to check you in.
and a bunch of questions. You have to see that, doing this, So I have to tell them. I say, no, I haven't done anything. I haven't seen nobody. I haven't touched nobody. I haven't hugged nobody. I haven't kissed nobody. So.
No, don't go telling fibs now. Okay.
What a life.
Don't go telling any fibs now. Okay. You know, we know how you are over there with those ladies in that apartment complex you live in. You know.
Well,
you know.
they chase me.
Yeah, right.
Oh, we got a little playboy here, huh?
It's all on them, Armando. All right. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Player.
Yeah, we're you know. Yeah, it's like, where's the shovel? Okay. Anyway, let's get on to how's everybody doing?
Great.
Good.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
We got 12. You know,
This is ready.
yeah, we started off with 4, and now, you know, like 12 whole people have snuck in here and everything. So cool.
Oh, good.
Okay, so let's see. We got Veronica and John is here. Eloise is here. Bob.
Oh.
Rebecca Pickney is here too. Wow. Okay, great. June and Ilan. Wanda.
Thank you.
Armando. Wow. Okay, good. We got, you know, a little bit of everybody here. All right, so let's jump on in, and actually, I'm going to start in reverse today. Okay.
Okay.
We're gonna start off with Wanda.
Off that fast.
Oh, okay.
Wanda's going to be first up today, and the reason that Wanda is going to be first up is because I got a couple questions for her, and then she sent me an email, of which she asked, you know, a pretty good question, and we're going to talk about that. But she's also been doing some really interesting stuff. So we're gonna begin with her, and we'll kind of move through the group that way. That doesn't mean that Bernice or Armando gets to be last either. So I'll skip it around a little bit. Okay. So anyway, let's do a screen share. And now we know that, you know, we can hear Wanda. And all right, so let's start here.
Oh. That's
Okay.
not, okay, there.
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
That's you.
Yes.
Yeah. No, the other was Armando.
Okay.
Okay. So Wanda sent me an email today, and she was saying, okay, I'm having a bit of a challenge, trying to draw this figure. And this is from Alvin Ailey and the dance troupe. And so, it's a real dynamic pose. There's a lot of different angles there. It's not a simple kind of, just standing figure. He's been over, there's a lot of action and stuff involved in that. And so she was, basically saying that she was struggling, I guess, with the proportions and things like that. So let's talk about that.
Mhm.
All right.
Okay.
The answer is, do you have it exactly the way that the photograph is? No, you don't. Okay. And you've done a couple of things, and mainly it's proportions that need to be sort of adjusted or corrected. If you want to get, an absolute likeness of the original image. Now, how important is that, in reality? And, actually, it's not so much, it's really not all that important. What is important is that you capture the gesture and the feel, of what this figure is doing. And, in looking at the drawing, you pretty much have done that. You've accomplished that. So does it have to be perfect? No. I mean, if it depends on what your goal is, is your goal absolute accuracy, or is it to sort of capture the feeling of what's going on there? If it's
The mood in it.
Yeah, if it's the mood and the movement of it, then you've done that. Okay.
Oh, okay.
And, I mean, now, is it a really finely finished drawing? No. Okay. And you could work on that. You could work on how you use line and weight, and if you're going to add tone to it or not. You may not, I mean, overall, when you look at the original image that you work from, most of it is in shadow, right?
Yeah.
So it's this very kind of dark shape against this very light background, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And, your image is, very different because it's a lineal drawing. There's really no tone involved in it, right?
Right.
And so, okay, so it's a slightly different thing. Now, there are things that you could do, that could stylize this even more. You could take this and go lots of different directions with it. Like, for example, I know he's wearing a pair of shorts and stuff like that, or, but
Yeah.
what would happen? Okay. What would happen if you kept this as a line, you took that line, from here and ran it and even curved it, maybe even more, but didn't break it right there at the hip and came right up under the leg and right down, to the ankle and, the toe. So, and made that one long continuous fluid line.
Okay.
It sets up the gesture, and it's, it makes it kind of more dynamic, right? Now, the reason I mention that is that's something that the classical Greeks did all the time, in their sculptures. A little bit about Greek history around that is that in Athens in particular, but in other areas of Greece, there was almost a 500-year period where the sculptors in Greece were working and, continuously trying to improve their techniques so that they could get a more lifelike, sculpture of a person. And in fact, they did, in fact, achieve that. Okay. And I mean, it's like, the person was standing right there in front of you, living and breathing, other than they were just in marble. Now, the fact is, most people, these days think of those Greek sculptures as white marble. That's the material they worked with, but part of the sculpture was actually painting that marble. And they would paint it in a very lifelike way,
Oh.
And so all of those marble statues that you see that are now white used to have these really bright colors. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Wow.
saw that. I saw that on Sunday morning.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah, they showed what they were really like.
Yeah, even like the it's not the Parthenon, that building in Athens, right? The big frieze. That frieze was covered in color,
Mhm.
and they literally put paint right over that white marble. That was kind of the finishing touch for them. It wasn't these white pristine buildings. They had all this color going on.
Wow.
So, but they would, after about, like I said, about a 500-year pursuit in perfecting sculpture to get it anatomically perfect and lifelike, that lasted for about 100 years. And then they kind of looked at it and said, the thing is, it's lacking something. It just, it doesn't, it's too perfect, and it's like, why are we doing that? And so what they did is they went back to the really early stuff, and they started sort of moving back in that direction where they stylized it and exaggerated it. And in fact, in two of the largest bronze, in fact, the two largest bronze statues that had ever been cast as a single piece, and they were almost like 40 feet tall. And this is a solid piece of bronze. Nobody's ever been able to do that since then. There were two warriors. And the line, if you look at the line of the spine, rather than doing the correct anatomy down the back, what they did is they took the spine and they brought it all the way down to the buttocks and through the buttocks and right out into the leg. So it was this one long, continuous flowing line. And it made the statues so much more dynamic and lifelike because they moved, they were breathing, at that point. And that's what I'm kind of suggesting here is that, you don't have to do everything absolutely anatomically correct.
Okay.
You can make decisions as an artist is like, oh, I really like that line. And, maybe I could take it and exaggerate it, and play with it.
Okay.
And stylize it, see?
Okay.
And you could do that with figures. You could do it with anything that you draw.
Okay.
It's not about photographic accuracy necessarily, unless that's what you're really after. But if you're after something that's expressive, then distort it, play with it, exaggerate it. That makes it more dynamic, more interesting to look at. Than if you just copied it meticulously.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So that being said, all right. And there's a lesson to be learned here. Okay. You asked me a question, and so I'm going to try to give you an answer. Okay. So
Yes, I appreciate that.
Is I used a little bit of Photoshop magic, and I took and I traced the figure over here to the left, and then I superimposed it on top of your drawing.
Oh, okay.
And there's what I got.
Oh, is that cool?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Okay. So
Yes.
you can begin to see where the angles and the proportions were a little bit out, right? Okay. And again, okay, it all goes back to, okay, so, all right, so it's not dead on. The lengths and proportions and everything are not absolutely just like the photograph. But again, it goes back to how important is that? See, is that really an important thing? you know, and it depends again on what your goals are. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And if you're trying to improve your drawing skills, you know, and look at shapes and proportions and things like that, okay,
Mhm.
as an exercise so that you can develop your skills, then, you know, then you might worry more about that. You know, if
Okay.
it's all about the expressive drawing part, then have fun with it. Okay.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah. So now I'm going to go further with that because, again, you know, you got me curious about that. I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, that isn't an easy pose. Okay.
Mhm.
And so I went and, you know, I looked at your reference and I did a drawing.
Okay. Oh yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
just looking at the relationships, right? And to
Mhm.
be fair, okay, I did the same thing to my drawing that I did to your drawing.
Okay.
Ta-da.
Right.
Wow.
And so, you know, you remember how I
Except for the head, you got it dead on, except for the head and the upper arm.
right. Well, but okay. Remember what I keep saying is that, you know, we all have a tendency to straighten things up.
Mhm.
Right there.
Okay.
Guilty.
Mhm.
You know, I did it too, you know. You know, because that's what the human brain does, you know.
But as one of the participants said, we like it that you struggle with us.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
struggle.
Look, you're an artist. You're gonna struggle. That's it. You know, it's always, you know, it's always kind of this, you know, back and forth. And you know, nobody ever does anything, you know, necessarily the first time and it's perfection. You know, that's kind of a myth that I want to, and I've been, you know, trying to dispel for all of you for quite a while now. And you know, it's, you know, anytime if you're doing a piece of artwork, you know, you're probably going to be, you know, drawing. You're going to spend a little bit of time with it. You know, if you
Mhm.
really want to develop it into something. You know, again, you know, it all goes back to what's your end purpose of this. You know, what's your goal of this. So you know, so just be aware of that. Okay. You know, nobody's perfect.
Yes.
You know, and you know, we all make those little, you know, if you want to call them mistakes or whatever, you know, we see it differently. The way we interpret it is differently. But that's the beauty of making a piece of artwork, is that the way you know, we're looking at the same thing, we're doing the same basic drawing, right? And we,
Mhm.
you know, and we see it differently, okay? And we express it differently. You know, that's the beauty of it, okay?
Yes.
So
Thank you. That was good.
okay. And so,
Mhm.
so let's put, you know, since we're down here at the bottom of the list, let's talk about this, okay? So, no, that's not the one. That's, come on. There we go. That's the one. Okay.
Okay.
So this is what you sent in.
Mhm.
These were your African ladies. I'm assuming they're African. They could maybe be Caribbean or something else, but you know, but they have these, you know, wonderful umbrellas and stuff, right?
Mhm.
And you know, it's a beautiful piece. And you know, we talked about, you know, softening, you know, this edge in here, and just
Right.
kind of make it a
Yeah.
little softer back there. And lo and
Mhm.
behold, you did exactly what I asked you to do. Now, I did a little color correction and pushed up the color from the one that you sent me. I probably pushed it a little too far, but
Okay.
look, you know, see how nice that is? How that kind of flows behind them now,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
they sit, you know, in front of that. Here's what you sent, and it was a little bit dark and dull, which is why, since I was playing in Photoshop anyway, you know, I just kind of, you know, beefed up the color a little bit in the contrast.
Okay.
But you know, it's so much softer now,
Mhm.
and you know, you don't go to that spot now. where before, you know, at least for me, I kept going back here and just
Yeah, it took your eyes. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, because it was such a hard edge. See?
Mm-hmm.
And now, not there, you know.
Gone. That was a good thing to do. It did soften it up a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it worked out, you know, really well. Okay,
Thank you.
so that was great. And then, okay, let's see. Now this is the mystery piece that we're all curious
Okay.
about because it's in the other day,
Yes.
and you weren't here to talk about it. So,
Okay.
so I want to talk about it now.
Okay.
So, exactly what is this, and kind of what did you have in mind? What you were doing?
Well, my daughter some years ago had a daycare and it was called Kaleidoscope.
Mhm.
And so I had drew a logo for her and decided to put it on canvas. So I took my yarn and my colors and this is how it turned out.
Okay, now I want you to be a little more in depth about that. Now, when you say that you took your yarn,
Mm-hmm.
so are you applying the yarn to the top of the canvas, or are you taking a needle and actually kind of?
Oh no, I have a yarning needle,
Mhm.
or you can say a darning needle.
Okay.
And first I painted the canvas,
Okay.
and then I take and I draw the design I want.
Mhm.
And
Now,
then
when
I
you say
take,
that you
oh,
when you say that you're painting it, you're painting the background color, right?
yeah, the background color. Yes, I did
Okay.
that first.
And now you're not painting the colors underneath here. That's all brown, right? All the way through?
No, 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 no. I put my design down and then I colored around it.
Oh, okay. So you brought the brown up to the edge of your design.
Yes, and then I colored in the colors so that I know where I want to put my colors at.
Okay, so you've got a green under here.
Yep. And
Okay.
there's red under and blue, like that, you know. So I did it like that, so that I would. Sometimes when you're doing these things, you need to have a color behind them because
Mhm.
sometimes the yarn may separate, and then you'll see white canvas or whatever color the canvas might be. So
Yeah,
instead of having that done, I color it.
Okay, like in this case right here, where the brown is kind of showing through.
Yes, yes. I was getting tired, so
Well,
this is very, very tedious job.
I would say so. Yeah, yeah. So each of these, you know, these long strings of yarn, you're puncturing the canvas and going, you know, behind and then back up, and you know.
Yes, just all the way around.
Okay, all right. And see, that was kind of what we were talking about. Is like, you know, did you do something with the yarn and then stick it to a backing and then put the whole thing down, or did you actually like sew through the canvas? And my thought was you were sewing through the canvas because I saw the spaces in here, you know, and so I was kind of curious about the process of this, you know. But yeah, I mean, this is very meticulous work, and it would take a good long time. How big is this?
What is that? I think it's a 12 by 14, something like that. It's not a real big canvas.
Okay, yeah. Well, a standard size would be a 12 by 16 or maybe a 14 by 18 or an 11 by 14.
This might be 11 by, maybe 11 by 14 or something. It's not it's not real big.
Okay.
Oh gosh, I wish I knew the size of it for sure. But it's you know, it might be maybe a 9 by 12.
Could be that too.
I think 9 by 12. It's more of a like no, it's maybe a 10 by 12. Anyway, it's not a very big canvas. But I've got it in the room.
Very pretty, Wanda.
Oh, thank you. I'll send in one of my other works that I did when I first started doing this. And let you all see that. As you see my picture there with my name on it, that's yarn too with those flowers.
Okay. What you know, the reason I was kind of asking about the process on that, you know, we've looked at, you know, we've looked at a variety of women artists who, you know, and for the most part, in fact, can't think of any others, you know, they're all African American. And that seems to be, you know, kind of like, you know, would you call that embroidery? Or what would you call the process of doing that sewing?
You would, yeah, you can call it embroidery.
Okay.
Instead of it being on cloth, it's
Uh-huh.
on a canvas.
Yeah, well, canvas is cloth, it's a stretch.
Well, I mean, as far as the softness, you know, a handkerchief,
Right.
embroidering a pillowcase.
Yeah, but you know, we've looked at a couple of different women artists, and I'm trying to recall their names. It was last year sometime, and there were like 3 or 4 of them, and they would do kind of like a combined collage work and things like that. But one of the elements that just about all of them, you know, kind of incorporated is that where they would actually stitch, you know, directly onto the canvas surface or the paper surface, you know, as part of the process of, you know, developing a piece of art. So, you know, it's you know, it was kind of interesting, you know, to see you do this, and then, you know, knowing that we had looked at, you know, that like last year or something like that, and you know, it's something that makes, you know, perfect logical sense, and it's a good way of adding an element of color and texture, you know, you know, to a flat 2-dimensional surface. So yeah.
This also comes around of making quilts.
Yeah, right.
My grandmother made quilts, but she made them by hand. Everything was hand stitched. Beautiful, beautiful quilts.
Right.
And I've made several quilts myself, but sometimes I'll use the sewing machine because doing it by hand does take a long time. But back then, they never used sewing machines. So there's the idea of the colors and the different designs, I believe, started out with making quilts coming from Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of that as well, you know. And I know that, is it Darnell? Yeah, I think it's, you know, I've been over to a couple of different centers, like Darnell in particular. You know, they were really big into quilting over there.
Oh yeah, they are at Bowden too.
At Bowden as well? Yeah.
Yeah, oh yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't remember seeing as much of it at Bowden, but I went over to a like one of the art openings, and you know, they had a whole section where these, you know, when some of the ladies were there. I'm assuming they were all ladies, maybe not. But, you know, they were doing some, you know, really, really amazing quilt work over there.
Yeah.
That was part of their program. And beautiful stuff.
Yeah, we have it at Bowden too. We have them hanging out in the lobby and other areas. So, and we do have a man in our class who grew up with 7 sisters.
Yeah.
And he can quilt. He had this beautiful quilt he came in with. Oh, just lovely. But he's a man, but he just liked quilting.
Yeah.
It probably was relaxing for him too.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, you know, sewing is, you know, I mean, these days, most people think of sewing as something that women, you know, kind of do almost exclusively. But the fact is, there's a long history. Most coutures and, you know, people, you know, doing fashion, you know, through history have been men, you know.
Oh yeah. We've got a gentleman, Kermit Ashford.
Yeah.
He does sewing over there too. Matter of fact, I made my first dashiki with him.
Oh, okay.
And that was very interesting. I was glad to learn how to do that.
Anyway, but yeah, I was curious about that piece. It's a beautiful piece.
Okay, thank you.
And then,
what do you know? You were talking about your grandmother doing quilts.
Yes.
You know, in your grandmother's day, probably. I remember when I was growing up, the ladies would get together and do what they call a quilting bee.
Yes.
They would meet at
Yes.
each other's house. They would have that little stand set up, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like gatherings for tea or something. Everybody would sit
Oh
around,
yeah.
all the gossip and everything, and
No.
they would cook together.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember my grandmother doing kind of the same thing. You know, she would dig
Mhm.
into, she would make all of like the kids' clothes, and she would quilt and embroidery, and do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That was kind of her thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent a lot of time watching her growing up. This is an interesting piece as well.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Oh
So,
yeah.
Oh.
yeah. So now that looks like two canvases stacked on top of each other, and then you got a buffalo on top of that.
If the bottom ones are those, matter of fact, what's her name? We call her Lady.
Yeah.
Gave me this idea when she was doing things. So I took these two things that you wrap material on that they have at the Joann Fabrics,
Okay.
and picked me up several of them, and decided to paint them, decorate them, and use them for my buffalo.
Okay.
So those were on the bottom, the canvas is on top of them, and the buffalo on top of that.
Okay. All right. So now this is made out of like cardboard.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're squared off. They're about 36 inches long.
Okay. So this is a cardboard piece. This is a stretched canvas, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then this is a ceramic piece that now this was a mold, you said, right?
Yes. We poured the liquid clay into the mold that is set overnight. The slip overnight, and then released it.
Right. Okay. And so then you glazed it, and you guys have some nice metallic glaze over there. That's hard to find these days. They basically did away with a lot of the metallics because they were toxic. And one of the things I was looking for at Benson before I left was trying to replace some of those glazes with some of the new metallics that they've got.
Okay.
That are a little safer to work with, and also fire at like regular kiln temperatures. Those old golds and things like that, they were beautiful, but they fired at a very low temperature, and you had to fire all your other colors, and then that was the last thing that you would do, because you fired at a very low temperature to get it to set. So, but it's a beautiful.
Is there significance to the green line?
The green
and
line?
the white dots. I mean, the pink line and the green dots.
What happened was, I laid the buffalo on there because there's stems that stick out behind the buffalo. And so I lined it up, marked it, and put the holes in there. So in the meantime, I'm doing some other stuff. I painted the background with this really swirly stuff on the back of on the canvas. But when I laid down the E6000 to, sorry, my grandkids are coming in from school. Okay, and they, so I put the E6000 on it to stick it onto the board. I put it on upside down. So when I went to put my buffalo on there, it was in the wrong direction. So I had to put it in that way, because once that 6000 is dry, that's it.
It's not going to go anywhere. Yeah, that's pretty tough to do. So anyway, this is she's got a couple.
So that's what happened. So that's why I put the stripes on there, because I had to do something to even out how it looked.
Right, to make them even on both sides.
Yes, or it would have been right in the center. So it's a 3D effect, which I liked.
Yeah, that's a nice piece. Real fun, kind of mixed media piece.
Yeah.
Now you said you're a big Buffalo Bills fan, and now you've got back orders for red, white, and blue Buffalo. All
different kind of blues. All everybody just wants one, and I'm like, okay, because I took it and sent a picture to a few people. The next thing I know, they're sending it to other people, and I'm getting all these texts and calls. So I said, well, it might be a while. I said, because I had this done at the center and we're not there any longer
Right.
for a while. So,
Well,
Yeah.
that's, yeah, that could keep you busy for a little while.
yeah, I think so.
So how long did it take you to do this piece overall? You know, doing the ceramic piece, the backgrounds, everything put together.
Oh, well, the ceramic peak was already done, of course. That was done last year.
But including the time that you took to do the ceramic piece, if you added it all together with, you know, assembling the background, painting them and everything else, about how much time do you think you have into this?
I would say this took about, I mean, if I started from scratch, this would take at least a week.
Okay.
Because pouring the slip and then waiting for that to dry and then cleaning it and marking it, and that would take a while. And I don't put my ceramics in the kiln. I keep them as they are, paint them, then I put them in the kiln.
Mm-hmm.
To me they come out richer colored to me.
So you don't fire them, you know, you don't pre-fire them, then glaze them, then refire.
No, I let them dry after I've done what I'm going to do to them, and then I glaze them, and then I fire them.
Okay.
That's nice. Is that as an open porch?
Oh yes, that's a sun porch. Yes.
How you keep the furniture looking good with the weather and the temperature change?
Well, it's screened in, so nothing really comes in, you know, at all.
No bugs.
No bugs, nothing. It's pretty nice to sit out there, except for when it's like 95 degrees outside.
Yeah, like it has been for the last couple of days. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. All right. Well, nice work. Really nice.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So I saw Rebecca here. There she is. Okay. So, you know, Rebecca's been sending in some stuff here over the last couple of weeks. Yeah, we remember the goat. So, you know, now this looks like it's on canvas. Is that correct?
It's one of those, yeah,
Yeah, canvas panels.
right, a panel. That's right.
Yeah, because the texture of it and stuff. Okay. And is this, what kind of medium did you use? Did you use like a colored pencil?
It's a colored pencil and maybe a little bit of pastels.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then there's this lovely little piece as well. And this is really fun. The flowers.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I was inspired by the beautiful panel that's behind the chair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it's, you know, I mean, you've simplified it and stylized it, but, you know, really, really fun little piece. And is this, I mean, again, what's the media on this? Is this watercolor or is this?
No, those are marking pens.
Okay.
And I just did a lot of marking pens, and I have a whole set of them that I got as a gift a couple years ago, and I'm just trying to use them up at this point.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty, Rebecca. I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I mean, it's a really fun. And in fact, when I saw this weeks ago, it kind of made me think of a assignment that I might end up giving all of you, which is to design a repetitive pattern. And we'll talk more about that later, you know, when we do it. But I was kind of thinking about that. That would really be fun to use, you know, as the basis of like a repeating pattern. Now, you said that you were working out of a book, and it's the Perry Pictures.
Yes, it's a group of small pictures that I think were used by my great-grandfather, who was a teacher in the 1890s and early 1900s. They're all classical, and I've been drawing them all along. and I finally finished them, but they call them the Perry pictures, and they were given to the classroom teacher, or maybe even an art teacher, I guess, and she used them in the classroom to get the children practice in drawing skills.
Right. Well, and that kind of gets into some historical stuff, actually, because really across most of this country and even in Europe and things like that, you know, they had small schoolhouses, and you had a teacher. You didn't have, you know, like 10 different teachers teaching 10 different grades. You know, that didn't happen until really much later, like in about the 1940s or 1950s. But, you know, up until that time, most teachers, you know, would teach in a small schoolhouse, and they would teach everybody from kindergarten all the way up through high school, and they were all in there together. And particularly, it seemed to be kind of concentrated and focused on young women. There were certain skills that they taught pretty much so universally in drawing and painting, and like craft skills and things like that were, you know, part of particularly women's education, you know, and, you know, all of the teachers would kind of focus and work with the girls, you know, to do, you know, things like this. And so this was kind of like a learning aid, and, you know, it was just like any artist, you know, sitting anywhere in the world, you know, doing master copies or whatever, you know, these young children would start, you know, trying to copy these drawings. And it was a way of, you know, helping them improve their drawing skills. And in fact, there are, well, you can still find out there, you know, examples of like embroidered and hand stitched patterns and things like that from these learning aids, like, you know, the Perry picture books and things like that, where people, you know, and particularly young women would sit and they would do a picture like that, but they would do it in like needlepoint or sketch it or whatever. And occasionally you can still come across pieces like that. But it's interesting that you know, you chose to kind of go through this whole book. And you want to talk a little bit about that, you know, kind of, you know, why you did what you did? Why kind of
Sure. Oh, yeah. I am very much positively influenced by classical learning, and this seemed to be in that mode.
Mm-hmm.
Classical figures from long ago, that appeals to me. And there's Mona.
Yep, there's Mona.
There's Mona.
Yep.
Mona is really a challenge.
Uh-huh.
Oh my goodness.
Yep.
I think I must have raced her a million times. She's very challenging.
Yeah. Well, I want to point something out about Mona.
Okay.
Because if you look at Mona, I don't think that that's actually a photograph of actually Da Vinci's Mona Lisa. I think I think that that's somebody's copy, like a master copy of the Mona Lisa that's been photographed. Because I've seen the Mona Lisa and she kind of doesn't look like that.
Well, good.
You know, but it's interesting that they have this photograph. I mean, it's very close, but it's Da Vinci's is very different.
So you think a student may have copied the Mona, and that's a picture of the copy?
Right.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. You know, it credits, it says, you know, painting by Leonardo da Vinci. You know.
In the Louvre. Yeah, in the Louvre.
In the Louvre. Yeah. But if you, you know, and I mean the background and the clothing, everything's, you know, pretty close, pretty right. But there's something just a little bit off about that face, you know. It doesn't look like Da Vinci's painting. And I'll have to go back and I have to really look, at the Mona Lisa, the actual, or some
You know,
reference.
at the bottom it says from painting by.
Right. Yeah, I know. That's what we were saying. It gives the credit, of this being, the actual Mona Lisa, but there's something, something not quite, at least as I recall.
Something's off. I think it's in the face.
Yeah, But actually, I was going to say, Rebecca, in looking at your drawing and looking at the reference you were working from, I actually like your drawing better.
Thanks.
No, I mean, she looks a lot more relaxed and it's a much more natural pose, but also the expression on the face and everything is really quite nice. You did a lovely job on that. So, I don't know. Maybe Leonardo could take some lessons from you. So.
Well, that's quite a kind thing to say. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But no, it is. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful drawing. It really is. It's lovely. Okay. All right. So, are you back with us kind of on a regular basis now?
Yes, and I don't know if anybody knew, but I had an older brother that lived out of town. He lived in Florida, and he contracted brain cancer, and he passed away about a month ago. But I wanted to tell you that drawing really helped me move through my grief because it gave me something to think about. It occupied my mind with something positive and helped me get over a lot of my very sad feelings. And I'm just really grateful that my hands had something good to do, because you need something to do when you lose somebody. And I'm the last of my family that's alive now, so that it's kind of closing in. I see life is, moving right along.
Yes,
and,
it does.
And I'm very grateful to have something good to do with my hands.
Mm-hmm. We have one of our friends here. Her brother passed last week, and her art is helping her also.
Right.
And it's a sad thing to go through, but you need something to keep your mind busy, even though you can't forget.
No,
but we know what you're going through, and we're sorry to hear about your brother.
Thank you very much. That's very kind.
Yeah, I would. One of the things, interestingly enough, if you look at artists and when they produce probably some of their very best art, it's in times that, things were not necessarily going so well for them. And somehow, that motivated them to focus and, put their effort into their artwork in a way, and it really kind of comes out on the other side as producing some pretty phenomenal stuff during those periods of time. Most artists don't produce their very best work, when life is going well, and really happy for whatever reason. So it seems like that stress or, things going on in life, for artistic or creative type people, it acts as an outlet, and kind of a comfortable place for them to go to, in often cases. And then some of the work that they actually produced during those times is really, really amazing stuff. So, not that I'm recommending everybody go out and do, anything to wreck their life or anything like that, so that they're producing better art. But, just be aware of that. It's when times get tough, a lot of artists, sort of how they cope with it is really in, making and focusing more on their work, and it can be an actual very, very productive time. So, in both with the output of the art, but also with the process of them, healing or figuring out, maybe what the next step is in life or what they're going to do next. So, for whatever that's worth. Veronica. I saw her.
Hello, I'm here.
There
Oh,
she is.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice, Veronica. I like that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, we saw this in some earlier stages, and you've definitely made a lot of progress on it. And I really like what's going on there. You've got a nice sense of, notice how the sky seems to be receding toward the horizon line, and then the land mass is doing the same thing. Kind of feels like you're moving up toward, the horizon line as well. And you've managed the color really nicely. A lot of the intensity and the brighter colors are toward the front, so that really pulls forward, and you've muted the colors as they've moved back. So you got a lot of nice things going on there. And it's got a nice sense of depth and structure to it. So are you finished with this, or where's it going to go from here?
I may, tweak it a little bit more based on the class with the mixing that you showed.
Okay.
So I think it's like maybe 90%. I don't want to, play too much now that I've gotten it to this point.
Okay.
I'll go on to the next piece.
And this, but this, is this oil?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
Oh,
beautiful.
wow. It
Thank
is.
you.
And this
I
is
thought it was watercolors. It's
Yeah.
oil. Wow.
and this
Yeah.
is a pretty good sized piece, isn't it?
20 by 30 or 30 by 40. It's big, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. I thought this was like about a 30 by 40. Because it's pretty good sized canvas. From what I remember of it.
Yes, it's big.
Yeah. So it makes quite a statement. When you're in the room with it. Okay. So I guess the only thing I would say is, if I were going to do anything to this painting, if I were painting this, the color and the value that you have back here in the hills, this gets pretty dark. And
So I need to lighten it up a bit?
well, yeah, I'm kind of thinking, because you see the contrast between the very light clouds and the landmass here.
Yes.
Yeah, it really makes that line here very prominent.
Okay.
And so I might take down the value of this whole area back here and bring it down in value. Keep it muted, so you don't bring up the intensity. Just lighten the value overall. And as you do that and you're working on that, try to soften that edge.
Okay.
So that the edge isn't quite so sharp.
Okay.
And again, that's going to help you get all of this to pull forward even more and let that sink back even further, so you get kind of a deeper sense of space in there. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. And you could keep it really neutral like that, or any color that you want to put back there. But whatever you do, just make sure there's a very muted, version of that color, so that it stays soft and it will keep receding. Okay?
Okay.
So no intensity back there. Right?
Yeah.
All right.
I really like that. And what's interesting is you took a horizontal landscape and a vertical canvas. Most people would have done it. Most people would have done it all horizontal.
Yeah.
That looks great.
Yeah, I actually like the composition of it. You know, because it does give you, you know, so much more in the sky, you know, and in the foreground. So that kind of gives you more to play with as far as, you know, really pushing that space back there. Where if she had done it horizontal, you would have had a lot less sky or a lot less foreground, you know, to work with it. So no, I like the composition the way you chose to do it. And it's really not all that horizontal because there's nothing here that's really kind of a straight, you know, horizontal line. I mean, about the only two things that are level are the peak here and the peak here. But everything, you know, it's all moving at an angle other than that, you know, either at an angle or moving forward. So, you know, it's nice, you know, because it keeps your eye just kind of flowing, kind of moving through the whole piece.
Yeah.
Anyway, well done.
Thank you.
All right. So now we're going to talk, you know, about Mr. Elan.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. James Bond himself, you know, Elan.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, so we looked at this piece earlier this week, and I wanted to show it again. Because I wanted to talk a little bit about, you know, Elan and his paintings, and the fact that, you know, if you ask Elan, you know, he's not good at figure drawing. And that's, you know, that's not, you know.
I like this. I like this a lot.
Yeah, that's not particularly
Very nice.
true.
I like it too. It's nice.
Yes, it is.
You know, but Elan, you know, his approach and his style to drawing is a little more whimsical and a little more kind of like, you know, two artists that, you know, he was talking about earlier this week, which was Alexander Calder and also Pablo Picasso. And, you know, they both had kind of a very lineal approach and style, kind of like the drawing that Wanda was doing, you know, of the Albanelli dancer. You know, it's all line. And the thing is, with line, it has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. Okay, with line all by itself, you know, it's hard sometimes to really get a sense of volume, you know, and dimension, you know, in the artwork. And that's one of the reasons that, you know, Picasso in particular really kind of moved into, you know, doing abstract art, you know, because it was his intention of, rather than trying to create a classical piece of art that was rendered, you know, and had a lot of sense of volume and form, he was flattening those shapes and was flattening those forms and making it, you know, more of a design or a pattern. And so, you know, the different artists approach things, you know, very differently. And one isn't necessarily right or wrong. It's just, you know, kind of how our brains work and how we interpret things. So, you know, so what I wanted to say to Elan about, you know, drawing figures, if you think, you know, if your view is that you struggle with figures and that you're not good at them necessarily, that doesn't mean don't do them. That means do more of them, but find a way of doing them that's uniquely your own. And I think, you know, what I would say to you is don't worry about trying to turn form or create volume. You know, make it kind of whimsical, kind of graphic drawings. And let that be, you know, let that be your approach, you know, to drawing figures and faces and anything else that you do. There's nothing, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, it kind of lends itself to your approach to painting as well. So, you know, you've got this lovely piece, okay? You've got this lovely woman. You know, and you said that, you know, you were kind of inspired by her big hat, and, you know, the clothes and the fashion. And, you know, you've got a nice composition going on here. And then, you know, her figure kind of moves, you know, through the composition, and it's kind of, you know, you would, you know, somebody asked me, you know, about whether this would be a cubist or cubistic painting. Not really, you know, it's more of kind of an abstract expressionist painting or style. And I would kind of encourage you to look at, you know, artists from that period of time, you know, of abstract expressionism and abstraction in general, and see, you know, what you can pick up. You know, there's things that you could probably find in there that you could probably use, you know, within, you know, your approach to painting. But yeah, this is a wonderful piece. And then the reason I wanted to show it was that he had sent in another piece, and now this one is more.
Charles, before you move on, when we looked at that picture before, you also mentioned how he pasted on the canvas. You know, how it's kind of, the hat coming off the edge of the canvas. He had it stuck on, you know, he has it.
Yeah, because the canvas ends out here. See?
Yes, and on the other, yeah.
Yeah, and he did that intentionally so that he could actually bring that shape outside of, you know, what we would consider the picture plane, right?
Right.
And what that does is, see, that activates the edge, you know, of that rectangle, you know.
That was a good idea. I like that.
Me too.
Yeah. So when you look at this piece, and then you look at the piece, now this is more, you know, what you would say really abstract. You know, we don't see a quote unquote recognizable image in there easily. Now, if you look long enough, you can see all kinds of things in there. I see faces of fish and, you know, all kinds of things going on in there. You know, if you want to, you know, if you have to make it something, okay. But I would kind of suggest that you don't have to. You could just enjoy it, you know, for what it is. And again, you know, even though this is very lineal, and we know it's a flat two-dimensional canvas, there's still, it's kind of playing with that idea of one shape overlapping another. So it begins to kind of fool your eye and have form and push space, right? In kind of an interesting way. And so, you know, even though this is, you know, kind of this hard, you know, kind of continuous outline around the form, it's still, you know, it's back and forth. You know, is it flat? Does it have dimension? You know, and I keep going back and forth about it, you know, which is good. You know, I mean, because it captures your interest and gets you to look at it. Now, I had a suggestion, you know, for Ilan, and this is really for all of you, okay? If you do something like this, you know, or whether it's a representational painting or, you know, a totally abstract painting, you know, oftentimes, you know, many of you will sit down and you'll do a painting and you'll just do it one time. And it's like, okay, there, I've got it out of my system, I'm done, okay. And I would encourage you to kind of think about it a little bit differently. And instead of doing like one painting, like let's say that this was a 8x10 canvas. So rather than starting one 8x10 canvas, get yourself about 4 or 5 of them, and then do the same design and the same composition on those same canvases, you know, all those canvases, and then paint them. But as you paint them, change them, you know, change the color, you know, maybe play with, you know, like in this particular case, you know, this is basically, you know, red, yellow, and blue. and then he's added green into it as well. But let's just say that you did primaries on this one, and maybe he does secondaries on the next one. Or maybe instead of having like really intense color, you know, maybe he softens all the colors and they're all kind of pastels or muted. And the reason I'm saying, you know, think about doing things like that is, you know, even if you don't change the composition, you know, just changing how you use color or temperature or any of those, you know, 5 types of contrast can radically change, you know, the emotional response that you have, you know, to any of these pieces of work. You know, one of the popular things to do around about, oh, I'd say it was probably in the 30s and the 40s and really kind of worldwide. You know, artists had been painting, you know, in pretty classical value ranges and intensities for, you know, literally hundreds of years, thousands of years. And there was a movement, it was called the Colorist Movement. And, you know, artists started experimenting with what they called a high key color range. And so basically what you're talking about are all of, you know, these primary, secondary colors, but they're much lighter. You know, there's no real dark, you know, values in any of these paintings. And so what they've done is they've taken that value range and they've shifted everything up, you know, lighter, so that, you know, the light areas are very light. And so the dark shadows are really kind of around a mid-tone. And they have a very interesting look and feel to them, but they also have a different kind of emotional quality or response as well. And so again, you know, experiment, you know, play, you know, change colors, you know, change value range. You know, the more you do that, you know, the more you're going to improve your skills because you're going to challenge yourself, you know, to, you know, play with that color and learn how to modify color to get it to work the way that you want it. And number 2 is that, you know, you're actually going to improve how you apply paint and layer the paint, you know, because you just spend more time actually working with the medium. So you can make a lot more informed and better decisions, you know, about how you mix the paint, lay it down there, and get the kinds of surfaces and things that you're looking for. So just keep that in mind. Have I said enough about that? Okay.
This is something to think about.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I mean, like I said, it doesn't apply just to a lawn, but, you know, I mean, it would be very easy, you know, to take a design like this and to, instead of doing 1, do 5 or 6. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a painting of a lady with a vase on her head that's kind of just gold and brown. Mm-hmm. And the more I look at it, the more I like it. It's like, it's smaller than 8 by 10. It's probably like 6 by 8 or something like that. And I think I'm going to make that a big figure. Mm-hmm. You know? I really am.
Right.
That would come out real nice, Bernice, because I remember that picture.
Yeah, I look at it, I like that.
You know, this sort of reminds me, probably back in the early 80s, a thing came out called op art. And this reminds me of that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, op art actually kind of happened around the 19th.
Oh, yeah. We were young and good looking on that time.
We still are. We still are. At least good looking.
So, yeah, but yeah, optical art, you know, basically kind of happened around about the 1940s, 1950s. And, you know, it stretched on into really, even today, you know, people are still doing, you know, optical illusions and stuff, you know, through the use of color, contrast, things like that. So,
Because in his picture of the woman, that black and white check, I had a dress like that.
Mhm.
And that's what made me think about it.
Yeah.
Very nice. I like both pictures. I like both your pictures. They're very nice.
Yeah.
Thank you
So-
very much, everybody.
Yeah, it's really nice. I think that
Mhm.
the one that's on screen now, I could see myself in a nice dress in that, a nice big flowy dress.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that would
Hey,
be.
like Lady Gaga, huh?
Yeah, that would,
Like the lady.
Yeah, right?
yeah, that would be a
With-
nice pattern for fabric. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's already flowing.
right. With
So
the red
who is-
shoes to go with it.
Oh yeah.
Already
Yeah.
flowing.
So who is buying it?
Yeah.
Well, we have to figure out how to transfer that to the
To
fabric.
the fabric, yeah.
Well, actually, I've got a guy, who I can, basically introduce you to. His name is Win Ying. I worked with him out in San Francisco many, many, many years ago, and he has a home goods business. It's called Taylor and Ing was the name of the company, and Win was a Chinese, and he actually grew up in China and came to America and became very entrepreneurial. But he would take pieces of flat artwork like this, and he would basically do whole series of home goods, and we're talking about tablecloths, bedspreads, towels, napkins, curtains. He could take a piece of artwork like this and he put it on everything, both hard surfaces as well as soft. And, so, he would actually have artists work for him that would create, images that he could use on all these series of housewares. And that's how I met him. Because I did a
Yeah.
series of those images. But yeah,
I think I would like the woman on a t-shirt and maybe a nice big tote bag.
Oh, that's nice too.
Mhm.
A nice leather one.
see, Alon, they're going to help you with your marketing.
What's
Thank
that,
you.
Fashion
Thank you.
Week in Paris? That'd be awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, the lady here, no, that'd make a really nice, like, front of a t-shirt. Actually, on the back
Yeah.
would be nice. It's less distracting. Being on the back. You got to be, well, depending on who you put it on. Some of us
Yeah.
wide backs. We could be a billboard for that really easily. So
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
my favorite one is the lady right there.
all right. So let's move on here. We got Bob. So Bob, tell me what's going on here. This is the lady that you were using in your painting of the patio.
Right. And so I'm not happy with the lady in the patio, on the patio.
Okay.
So what I've done is I have done some, well, I'm working on a study of her. It's probably back a ways. I think I sent it to you.
Right there.
Those beer bottles.
There it is. Yeah, okay.
Oh,
And I'm trying, and so I'm working on a study of her. So, and I'll go put, looking at color and looking at proportions and all that kind of. I noticed her arm is way too long, and I've shortened it. And then her face is all horrible right now. So I have, but it's about 6 layers on her face that I've been trying different colors and different shadows and so that's what I'm. When I finally figure it out, I'll transfer that to the other painting and maybe
Yeah,
make
that's
it a
fine.
little larger.
Okay. So I
So
want
this
to
is
point out. I want to point out a couple of things, and you were right. Her arm,
Yeah,
Up.
yeah, it's what.
arm here was way too long, but also the size and the proportion of her head to
Yeah,
her.
well,
arm.
that I agree. I have very, it's been larger and smaller.
Yeah.
Getting it the right size is a whole different kettle of fish.
So this is a paint on a process. It's not finished yet.
Oh, heavens no.
No.
Oh, heavens no. So,
Okay.
so many iterations here of this.
So let me give you a hint. Okay. If her chin is going to end here, okay, then measure down to, you know, the breast line right here.
Right.
And that should be about the size of her head.
Right. Right. Yes.
Okay. And so, you know,
it has come and gone, that size.
Yeah, but yeah, just, you know, I mean, as a vertical measurement. And then of course, you know, depending on the angle of the head, things like that, you know, whether she's looking straight at you or whether she's looking slightly turned, you know, the width of the head can vary quite a bit. But
yeah, the eye sockets have been frustrating.
Well, yeah, mainly, you know, I'm going to say this again. Color can be anything. You can make you can make those eye sockets green, purple, blue, red, whatever you want. Okay, but you got to get the value right.
I'm shaking my head up and down.
It's all about the value. It's not about the color. Okay.
Right.
And when you know, when we go back and look, okay, look at the reference. Okay. If I had to assign a color to that, yeah, I would say it's kind of maybe a little bit purple, a little bit violet in there. And it's slightly darker overall than the you know, front plane of the face, but the values are pretty close. You know, really the lower part of the face on the left side, as we're looking at it, you know, really her face is almost divided right down the middle, you know, between, you know, light on the right side, shadow on the left side. So you know, the main thing is get the value and color set for this, and then just transfer it over to that side, and you're going to get the right amount of contrast if you get the value right on this side and this side.
Okay.
And you know, as far as like a focal point, you know, in the painting, it's really kind of a triangle, kind of from the nose to really this side of the mouth up to this eye.
Okay.
You know? And that's really your focal point right in here.
Well, no, not in the bathroom.
You know, because you almost lose this eye and this side of the mouth into the shadow.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah.
But you know, it's a nice piece of reference. You know, and it's a nice thing to paint from. And where you're going with it, getting you know, getting your colors laid in, things like that. You know, it's just right at this point, it's just a matter of getting more paint on the canvas and working those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
We've gotten our third shot.
So yeah, we kind of want to see where, you know, where you go from here. Okay.
Me too.
Yep. Yep. Okay, so then we sent this in, and that kind of, you know, stopped me there for a minute. It's like, okay, so, okay, you know, what is this all about? And
well, I mean, basically, you're what you were just talking about a few minutes ago. Basically, doing the same piece over again to see what happens with it. And so, basically, this is the piece that I'm doing again. The lady with the tear, and trying different things and trying to get her to look like I want her to look. Basically, this is still a work in progress too.
Okay. All right. And this is done like on a gray piece of paper?
Yeah, this is done. The other one was done on a white piece of paper. This one is done on a gray piece of paper.
Okay. Yeah. So you had a value to basically work from. And then
correct.
is this a colored pencil or what kind of media are you using?
This is graphite and white charcoal.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So you got a dark and light to work with to build value. Okay.
Well, the dark next to the neck is also it's carbon also, so it's a little bit different.
I have a question, Bob.
Yes.
Do you like working with the gray background compared to the other white background?
I'll let you know when I figure it out. I have mixed emotions about it at this point. I think it has some value, but I'm still working and see if I really like it or not.
Okay.
I've done some watercolors on gray tone, and it really gives a different effect with the watercolors.
I bet you does. Yeah, John.
Yeah. Yeah, I would imagine too.
As far as what, does the colors come out darker? Do you have to use a lighter color?
Darker, the whole scene is muted.
Mm-hmm.
The whole picture, basically, the colors don't seem as intense.
Right.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, because you're working with a transparent media that
Correct. Yes.
gray shows through on everything, which means that if you want to get any really strong lights, you're going to have to use something opaque, to kind of pump up the light, in those areas. I mean, it can be done. You just, you got to find a way of working, with the medias that you have, and and you may not be able to, really achieve what you want with just watercolor. You may have to add pastel, you may have to add colored pencil to it, or maybe like gouache, which is an opaque water-based media, right? To get where you go. So, there's always ways there. It's just, you got to find the one that works for you, with what you've got. So, anyhow, so we have Bob's figure drawings. So this would be the lady in the dress, I believe. And I'm just going to kind of thumb through these real quick. So these were all short poses for the most part. And, where I think we were doing like 2-minute poses or something like that.
Yeah, 60 seconds.
Okay, so it's like a minute long. Yeah, and you're beginning to get the ballerina down here. And, you're getting the idea of the motion and the movement. I guess what I would say to you is, like, now this was one of the longer drawings, and I guess my take on it would be, you've got this piece of paper here. Why did you not fill the paper? Because I think she was about a 15-minute drawing, if I remember. So when you have the opportunity, and you've got the time, work bigger, working, in small little sets like this, when you have multiple figures on a page, it's fine. And you can do some really interesting things with them, as far as playing with how you compose them and kind of get them to kind of work together. But when you've got a longer pose.
Did you tell us this was the last pose though?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, we were down to the end. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was I think it was like a 15-minute pose. These are some of the.
I remember the time.
Uh-huh.
I think some of us are so traumatized that we didn't realize what sizes to do, because I know how I felt.
You were, it was traumatic, huh? Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll try not to traumatize you too much this Friday then. Okay. Okay, so I guess my general comment, in looking at all of these was that, you're getting the overall movement of the figures, proportion wise, for the most part. they're not bad. You know, they're pretty good. You know, you've got some areas where, like the foreshortening on this leg, you know, you could work on a little bit. But again, you know, overall, you're getting the idea. You're getting the movement. You're kind of getting the proportions of things down. Now, one thing I would caution you against in looking at, you know, just about any of these drawings, you do a lot of what we call restating. Okay. I can't hear you, Bob. Bob.
Is there?
Yeah, I see him, but he's got to unmute himself.
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Yeah, I realize that the fact that I do that, and I tell myself, make definitive lines. To make definitive lines, and sure enough, sketch.
Right.
That's what happens with my arm. My brain and my hand aren't attached necessarily when I'm getting to these things.
That's that trauma, Bob.
Is that what it is?
I think we've all had it one time or another.
Oh yeah, yeah. And believe me, I'm there with you. But you know, again, try to be a little more conscientious about when you're looking at something. And I know that when you only have 30 seconds or 2 minutes or something like that, you kind of feel under pressure and you put it down, you don't like where it is, and you go back and you try to fix it. And, you know, I guess my simple answer to that is don't. You know, just make a line and move on, okay? And make the next line. It doesn't matter, you know, that maybe the arm's a little thicker or a little thinner or whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect. The main thing is, you know, get the proportions of movement, which you're doing. But, you know, just try to simplify your line work a little bit. And what you'll find is you'll actually have more time to draw because you're not going back in and trying to restate that same line. You know, I've done it. Everybody's done it. You know, we get kind of hung up in like little areas of the drawing. And it's just like, no, put it down, move on. Next thing. You know, because honestly, the first time you put it down is probably as good as the 100th time. You know. So
Well, maybe I should invite you over to the house when we're doing these things so you can slap my hands every time I try to do it.
Right.
No restating, Bob. Yeah.
Be like the ruler, you know, smack your hands when you're doing something wrong in class.
Yeah. Well, or the other thing I could do.
I've heard that Charles pull people's hair out.
You've heard what?
I've heard that you will pull people's hair out if they're sitting too close, but I never heard that you would slap their hands.
Pull people's hair out. I don't think I've ever pulled.
Yeah, you said if they're sitting too close to the painting.
Oh. No, I don't pull their hair out.
I misunderstood.
Yeah. No, I will tell you that you're sitting too close.
Okay.
I do that all the time. Yeah. It's like, hey, stop hugging the canvas, you know. You know. But yeah, I think what I could do is maybe, you know, and this speaking of traumatizing people, this would probably be torturous if I just made kind of a recorded loop of, you know, like don't restate, look for proportion, find the long line, you know, and it just kept looping over and over and over again. That would probably drive people crazy. So probably not a good thing to do.
Well, you know, we do need therapy after your classes sometimes.
Oh, you do? Wow.
I need it.
Wow. Okay.
No, not very nice.
It was a joke. It was a joke.
I know.
Yeah, because I thought the art was the therapy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. That's
Yeah,
all right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the end effect actually is that, you know, we want you to kind of walk away happy and feeling relaxed and good about something that you did. You know, if you're stressing yourself out, then, you know, maybe I need to re-examine how I'm doing this. I don't know.
You need to put the other piece aside and start a new one.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about Bernice.
Uh-oh.
That is so, that is so cute.
Wow, I like that.
Well, here's the thing.
Oh, it's a roller coaster. Okay.
Yes, it is. It's a roller coaster. Okay.
One of the guy fell off the car.
I haven't put this figure in yet.
Yeah, she's not in there yet. Okay. But yeah, she's I think the face that she's wanting to stick in there is this one right here.
Oh wow, yeah, that'd be perfect.
Yeah.
That
What
would be
emotion.
me if I write one of those things.
Yeah. Now, Bernice sent me this, and she's got a whole series of these, and she's playing with how to get the expression on the face. And, some of these are wonderful. I mean, they really are. They're really fun. So, she's got a tone canvas, and she's just kind of working on these little characters, faces, and trying to capture expression.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I was trying to use my face and get that expression.
Yeah. And
The
okay.
one at the bottom is what, Medusa?
Yeah. No, she was just trying to, she found something online or whatever, of a lady screaming. And so, she's trying to kind of copy that expression.
It does look a lot like Medusa, doesn't it?
It does, a little bit, with her going every which way,
But you got the expression down good.
Oh yeah, yeah. But and see, this is one of the things I keep talking about. It's like, experiment, do little studies, play with things, figure things out, and that's exactly what she's doing. She's going through the steps right now, and she's trying to figure this out little by little. Okay. And, the end result is, she wants to incorporate everything into a final painting. Mm-hmm. And I think in your email, is where I read this, is that, you were kind of thinking about getting rid of the roller coaster. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, well, not getting rid of it necessarily, but concentrate on just doing my face in different expressions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, let me tell you about the roller coaster. Initially I had put the faces in. I wanted them to be bigger because I wanted the faces to be the focal point. And I think the little car is too bright for one thing. But I was trying to figure out how could I get a little picture of the roller coaster and the face also. And Wanda suggested do stick figures. And since she said do stick figures, let me look at some big heads on stick figures. So that's my version of a stick figure that
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A long time ago, in my past life, I had a client by the name of Waffle House, and I worked for them for about 15 years, and I did some characters that they would use on their menu, and they were kind of like this, they were kind of cartoony, kind of fun, and so you would exaggerate, the size of the head to the body, and usually what I would do is whatever size the head was the whole body beneath them, so they were really these big-headed people, and they were, kind of always kind of fun, whimsical looking, illustrations. And so, you could actually, do a much bigger head, than you're putting on there, because again, we're.
Oh, I can make it even bigger. Oh yeah, because it's easier for me to draw when the head is bigger. When it's little, it's kind of hard,
Yeah, it's like, why make it harder on yourself? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, do they have to be proportional to the body? No, not at all. Because I mean, you're not trying to do a photographically real representational piece. It's kind of more whimsical and kind of fun. It's kind of a fun look at your year, being locked away, in COVID. you know, and all the different changing emotions and things going on. And so, yeah, you know, do we have to base it where everything is realistic? You know, no, you don't. And so, you know, you can have some fun with it. So you could almost like double the size of these heads in here.
Oh, okay.
And,
Okay.
you know,
Is my car too bright?
no,
Oh, it's not. Okay.
No.
I thought.
no. I guess what I would tell you is I wouldn't worry about the color of, you know, the actual roller coaster or the cars being too bright or the shirts. It's just when you paint the faces and you get, you know, if you enlarge them, however you do it, as you paint them, try to get a little more color into the flesh tone mixtures. And
Yeah, I'm still working on that. I just sent it in to show you where I was, but I'm still working on the. I just put some paint on there just to get it down, but I'm still working on giving them some more expressions, you know.
Okay, yeah, but as you do these, you know, just try to get more color in there. When I say more color, you know, don't mute or muddy things up too much. And my guess is, in looking at this, the colors that you've mixed are, you know, pretty much so out of the tube, kind of like browns. And,
yeah,
you know, I know that you have, you know, like a darker flesh tone, but the fact is, you still take those primary colors, red, yellow, and blue, violet, you know, and the secondaries, orange, violet, and green, and you can make those flesh tones. And there's a difference. You know, there's a difference in mixing down a flesh tone and making a kind of a brown from those primaries than taking it right out of the tube. The intensity level of like a burnt sienna or a raw umber or a burnt umber out of the tube is way, way lower than what you're going to mix if you use the primary colors. And so you'll still see those colors influence, you know, in that mixture more if you do it, you know, with using your primaries and secondaries.
Now, but believe it or not, if you look at the one picture that I sent in, you know, that with the lady kind of screaming, actually, what I did, I put a lot of purple on her. And what I'm going to do is some of them I'm going to say like, maybe have a hue of green because, you know, a hue of blue, you know, to kind of let the color not be real flesh tones, but kind of emotional flesh tones.
Yeah, you could go that route. You know, you could push those colors and you know, I mean, reality is skin tones, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you have a light or a medium or dark flesh tone. You know, to your skin. Your skin reacts to the light. So you can have somebody with a very dark complexion standing next to somebody with a very fair complexion. And if the light is extreme, you know, the shadows on both of those people are going to be about equal. And so the darks, you know, on that light flesh tone are going to be just as dark as the person with a darker flesh tone. It all depends on the light. And so you can have almost any kind of color influence, you know, in skin, because skin basically reacts to the light around. And as the light changes, those colors are going to change, you know, and the contrast is going to change. So you can really play with the color, you know, in your skin tone mixes. And if you want to push them, you know, like warmer or cooler, you know, violet would be generally a darker and cooler, where green would be a little bit warmer and generally probably a little lighter, depending on the green that you use. So yeah, you've got a lot of latitude to play with there, and you know, just experiment, you know, play with it. But you know, the approach that you're taking, as far as, you know, doing these little studies, you know, on this canvas off to the side, that's the right way to go, you know.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
that's a good solution, you know. And you, again, you know, if you, let's say that you totally mess something up over here, right? And you just get something that, you know, doesn't work. Well, okay, it's not a bad thing, you know, and it's not on the final piece. And so you've learned something, and you know, okay, I'm not going to go that direction, you know, when I get into painting the final piece. So, you know, but you'll be able to kind of have like a bit of a history. You know, you can go back and look at it and go, okay, this is what I did, and this is how I did it. You know, after everything is done and said, and that's really important, because that will give you, you know, a way of going back and referring to, you know, the process that you've gone through, and kind of cement it in your mind as to, you know, how I mixed those flesh tones, you know, how I got those values, you know, how I actually applied paint, you know, to a canvas, you know, to get the effects, you know, that I was looking for. And so it's a good learning process. Okay.
Well, I'm glad you said I could make the heads twice as big. That helps me a lot. Those little heads were killing me.
Okay. Yeah, you can do them. You can do what you want. It's your piece of art. You know?
I like to see
And
the
Bernice,
a lot of things, and that little roller coaster thing is so cute to me. And the last car speaks volumes. It says that I've been trying to maintain my sanity during this confinement, but,
Oh, yeah.
but it got me in.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, yeah, the
and
overall the overall concept of the piece is great, you know. So yeah, I'm looking forward to her getting it done.
and Bernice, the color of the cars is fine because roller coasters are bright like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again,
I was thinking it was distracting from the face, that, you know.
Yeah. But again,
not the way they look. They look good.
Yeah, if you get more color in these faces and things, you know, that yellow is not going to compete with it. It won't.
Okay.
Because you're still going to have a lot more contrast, you know, between the dark hair and then the flesh tones against your background than the yellow against this background. The value contrast is really not extreme at all. You know, between the car and the background. So yeah, your heads and things are really going to have a lot more contrast. So that those will come forward. You know, those will be the things that people will focus on. You know, not the cars. I mean, you're at this stage, you know, you're early in the game, and so, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Guess who we're going to talk about now? Armando.
Get the shotgun ready.
I hope I don't get shot, you know, while I'm doing this.
No.
So, okay, so here's Armando's. I want to say she's from Nepal. She could be from India. She could be Thailand, anywhere. Okay, but you know, we've talked about this dancer before, and you know, a lot of people, you know, kind of struggled with her, you know, getting her proportions and everything. But you know, again, you know, it's kind of like within the time that you had to do it. I think this was a 45-minute drawing, so we had really quite a bit of time. You know, overall, your proportions are pretty good. You captured the overall movement, you know, of the pose. You know, there's nothing really terribly wrong, you know, with the drawing. You've got the arm moving forward, and in fact, you know, you've got the hand a little bit bigger, so it kind of gives us the sense that the arm isn't just going in front of her, but it's actually coming in front of her, but out toward us at the same time, which is good because it gives you, again, you know, some sense of depth in there. It's not totally flat. So overall, you know, I'd say, you know, pretty nice drawing. You know, now again, you know, we could kind of talk about the overall proportion. And I think what we figured out was that if you took from where this bottom leg kind of met the groin area, or the crotch, you know, to the top of the hand, the height versus width, it was wider than it was tall. Okay. Now you've got yours to where it's taller than it is wide, which was, you know, a pretty common, you know, thing that people did. So, you know, other than, you know, maybe bringing that leg out a little bit further, you know, and opening that up a little bit, you know, that would really be the only thing that was really off in the drawing. You know, but again, you know, the question is, can you look at this at the end of the day? Do you know what she's doing? Yeah, yeah, you did. So I think you did a pretty good job at it. So I don't think anybody's going to get any shotguns out chasing you or anything like that for it. Here we have your bear, okay? You know, and you got the idea of the bear. He looks like a bear. Looks like he's got a fish. Not quite sure what's going on with the paw, you know. Looks like you've tried to bend it or something like that. You know, this front leg here. And it didn't quite do that. You know, the fish was actually bigger.
Yeah, missing one leg there.
Yeah, yeah, and the other leg kind of went behind it, you know, in the original reference. But again, you know, the question is, do you, when you look at this, do you think it's a bear, you know, with a fish in its mouth? Yeah, you do. So, you know, you can't go wrong.
And we do see that fourth leg behind the fish.
Yeah. Yeah, right here. Yeah, in this case, because he breaks it in front of the chest, it's like we're seeing the upper part of the paw, like he's, you know, got the paw in his mouth or something. And then last but not least, you have a blurry ballerina. Okay. Same thing. Okay. Again, you know, the general proportions of things. You know, could use a little bit of work, you know, here and there, but do you have the movement, you know, of the pose? Yeah. Okay. You know, do you know that it's a ballerina? Yeah. Okay. And really, you know, proportion wise, if you take your hand and you cover up that lower leg down there, the leg extending out to the back and the arm and the torso and even the head, for that matter of fact, all of those are pretty proportional with each other. It's this arm and it's this leg that seem to be a little bit small or understated in some way. And I guess what I would pose to you is if you went back and you looked at the reference, you would find that the arm in this area right here was a little bit thicker and heavier in that it tapered and got smaller as it went to the wrist. And see, that would tell you that it's going back away from you. Okay? Same thing here with the leg. You know, the leg was a little bit longer, you know, and probably just a little bit back from there. It's got to fall like really like right under the head, you know. And so I would have probably placed the tip of the toe kind of about right in there. Okay. So again, you know, it's a little thing, but we know she's a dancer. So, and I think that was a 15-minute drawing, right? Armando?
I don't remember exactly, but maybe, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was one of the longer ones. It wasn't a 2-minute. So, you know. So it's good to see you drawing, you know, and it's not so terrible, is it? Yeah, you know, we could all use a little improvement, you know. in our drawing skills. And the only way you get better is keep drawing. You know, it's not going to fix itself on its own. So anyhow, well, that's about it. That's all I got. How are we doing time-wise? Well, gee,
We're about there.
just about, yes. It is 3:52. All right, so anybody got anything that we need to talk about before we go away?
Oh, but I need to go walk the dog now. I'll see you later.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
Anything exciting on tomorrow's agenda?
Oh yeah, it's Friday.
Always exciting.
Tomorrow's fried catfish.
Catfish Friday?
Yep.
Yes.
Someplace. Yep. Okay. Well, all I can say is 10 o'clock in the morning, I will be here and I will have some things for you to draw. And just to give you a clue, we're going to talk about 3-point perspective. Yeah. Don't go away. You know, you'll find it in a very interesting class. Okay. You know.
It's not Sky.
Yeah, and maybe by the end of it, you know, you'll have a little better understanding of, you know, this idea of your eye level and the horizon line being the same thing, and you know what things look like when you're way above them or way below them. Okay. So.
Okay.
Yeah. All
Yeah. All right.
All right.
You guys have a good night, and we'll see you in the morning.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Take care. So long.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles.